The rain poured down as a young mother trembled at a deserted bus stop, clutching her little boy. Through tears, he whispered, "Don't cry, Mommy. Maybe that man will help us." One stranger's choice that night would change their lives forever. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching. The rain poured over the city of Belmere like a never-ending curtain, blurring the lights, the traffic, and the faces rushing to find shelter. Inside a sleek black sedan that glided through the flooded streets, Adrian Cole sat in silence, his eyes fixed on the glowing tablet in his hands. Every second mattered to him. He had a merger meeting that could secure his company's global dominance. Nothing, not even a storm, could be allowed to slow him down. The world knew Adrian as the man who never paused. A billionaire before 40, a strategist with ice in his veins. He didn't believe in luck or mercy or detours. He believed in numbers, and numbers had made him invincible. "Sir, the traffic's building up near the bridge," his driver Ethan said quietly, his voice almost drowned by the heavy rainfall. "Should I take the lower street?" "Do whatever gets me there fastest," Adrian replied without looking up. His voice carried the practiced sharpness of someone used to obedience. Outside, the city was drowning in grey. Umbrellas flipped inside out, water rushed through gutters, and neon signs flickered weakly. Adrian didn't notice any of it until he heard something faint, a sound not from inside the car, but from beyond the glass and rain. It was the sound of a child's voice. "Don't cry, Mommy. Maybe that man will help us." Adrian's head lifted instinctively. For a brief second he thought he imagined it, but then he saw them, just beyond the fogged window. A woman sat on a bench at the bus stop, soaked to the bone, clutching her stomach as though she were in pain. Standing beside her was a little boy, maybe 5 years old, his hair plastered to his forehead, his tiny hand holding a broken toy car. He was pointing directly at Adrian's sedan. "Keep going," Adrian said reflexively, lowering his eyes back to his screen. The car rolled forward a few feet before the red light forced it to a stop again, but he couldn't look away. The boy was still there, barefoot, trembling, yet filled with a kind of faith Adrian couldn't comprehend. The woman tried to stand, stumbled, and fell back onto the bench, crying out softly. The boy crouched beside her, confused and terrified, but he didn't cry. He just looked again at the black car with tinted windows and whispered something to his mother. Ethan noticed his boss staring. "Sir, the light's about to turn green." Adrian's throat felt dry. He didn't know why he hesitated. He had every reason not to stop. He had a meeting worth millions. He didn't owe these strangers anything, and yet the echo of that little voice clung to him like the rain against the glass. "Pull over," he said suddenly. Ethan blinked. "Sir?" I said, "Pull over." The tires splashed through the puddles as the car rolled to the side of the road. Adrian stepped out into the downpour, the cold water instantly soaking through his tailored suit. For the first time in years, he didn't care about appearances or schedules. He just moved. The boy saw him first and gasped. "Mommy," he stopped. Adrian approached the bench. Up close, he saw how fragile the woman was. Early 30s maybe, face pale and drawn, one hand pressed to her stomach as if holding herself together. She was shaking uncontrollably. The boy clutched her sleeve and looked up at Adrian with big, pleading eyes. "Please, sir," the boy said, his voice trembling but clear. "My mommy's sick. We've been waiting for the bus for a long time, but it didn't come. I think the baby's coming." Adrian crouched down, ignoring the rain dripping from his hair. "Can you tell me your name?" he asked softly. The woman struggled to open her eyes. "Lena," she whispered. "My name is Lena. I just need to get to St. Clair Hospital. It's a few miles from here, but I can't walk anymore." Her voice broke and she doubled over, gasping. Adrian could see she was in labor, far too soon and far too alone. Without hesitation, he turned to Ethan. "Open the back door. Now. Sir, you'll... Now!" He slipped his arm around Lena's shoulders, lifting her gently to her feet. She was lighter than he expected, trembling violently, her soaked clothes clinging to her thin frame. The boy followed, still holding his toy car tightly against his chest. Adrian helped them both into the car, his suit completely ruined, but his mind strangely clear. "Take us to St. Clair Hospital," he ordered. The car sped off, windshield wipers battling the storm. In the back seat, Lena's breathing came in sharp, shallow bursts. The little boy, Noah, as Adrian soon learned, held her hand tightly. "It's okay, Mommy," Noah whispered. "The nice man's helping now. You can rest." Adrian glanced back from the passenger seat. The boy's calmness in the chaos struck him. "How old are you, Noah?" he asked. 5, Noah said, meeting his gaze. "Mommy says I'm her brave little man." Ethan caught Adrian's eye through the mirror, silently questioning if this was wise. But Adrian ignored him. "We'll get there soon," he said to Lena. "Just breathe through it, okay? You're safe now," tears mixed with rain on her face. "You don't have to do this. I can't pay you. I didn't ask for money," Adrian interrupted softly. "Just focus on breathing." Lena nodded weakly. Another contraction hit, and she cried out, gripping the seatbelt so hard her knuckles turned white. Noah started to cry for the first time. "Mommy, it hurts." "She's going to be okay," Adrian said, his voice firm but gentle. "You're doing great, both of you." He didn't even recognize his own tone. Calm, reassuring, human. Minutes later, they pulled up to the hospital entrance. The emergency team, alerted by Adrian's call ahead, rushed out with a stretcher. He stayed beside Lena until she was taken inside, Noah's small hand still gripping his. "Please," Lena gasped as they wheeled her through the doors. Don't leave him alone." "I won't," Adrian said quietly. "I promise." And for reasons he couldn't explain, he meant it. Hours passed. The rain outside slowed to a drizzle, leaving the city washed clean. Adrian sat in the waiting area, his once perfect suit crumpled and stained, his phone buzzing endlessly with missed calls and messages. He didn't answer any of them. Instead, he watched Noah, who sat beside him, sipping hot chocolate that a nurse had brought. "Thank you for helping my mommy," Noah said suddenly, breaking the silence. His voice was small, but his sincerity filled the room. "I told her someone would stop. She didn't believe me, but I did." Adrian smiled faintly. "Why me, Noah? Why did you think I'd stop?" The boy looked thoughtful for a moment. "Because you look like someone who could fix things." Adrian blinked, caught off guard by the innocence of that statement. He had spent his entire life fixing problems, but only the kind that made him richer. The kind that didn't involve people. Noah looked up again, his eyes shining. "Mommy says sometimes people wear nice clothes because they worked really hard. I think you worked hard, so maybe you'd help us." "And you did." Adrian felt something stir deep in his chest, a warmth he hadn't felt in years, maybe decades. The doctor finally came out smiling. "Mr. Cole, the woman you brought in, she's stable now. She's going to be fine. We've moved her to recovery." Adrian let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thank you. Her son can see her now," the doctor added kindly. Adrian turned to Noah, who was already sliding off the chair, clutching his toy car tightly. "Can you come too?" the boy asked, his small voice hopeful. "Mommy will want to thank you." For a moment, Adrian hesitated. He'd never been good at gratitude, giving or receiving it, but something about the boy's eyes made saying no impossible. "Of course," he said. They walked down the hallway together, past the soft hum of monitors and the muted beeps of machines. When they reached the room, Lena looked up from her hospital bed, tears in her tired eyes. "You stayed," she whispered. "I promised I would," Adrian replied quietly. Noah climbed carefully onto the bed, hugging his mother. "Mommy, he helped us." "I told you he would." Lena's gaze softened as she looked at the man who had appeared like a miracle in the rain. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling. "You don't even know us, but you stopped." Adrian nodded slowly. "Maybe I needed to." For the first time in years, he felt peace. Not the peace of a closed deal or a finished project, but the quiet, profound peace of knowing he had done something that truly mattered. Outside the window, the rain had stopped. The city lights shimmered against puddles like scattered stars, and in that moment, Adrian Cole, the man who never stopped for anyone, realized that sometimes life's greatest turning points come disguised as cries for help in the rain. The next morning, sunlight crept slowly through the hospital blinds, washing the room in a quiet gold. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered in every puddle outside and in Adrian Cole's mind. He stood by the window, watching the world below start another busy day. Cars honked, people hurried, and life moved on, as if last night's chaos had never happened. Yet something within him hadn't moved on at all. He could still hear the rain, and that small voice saying, "Maybe that man will help us." Behind him, the faint sound of laughter made him turn. Noah was perched beside his mother's bed, showing her his repaired toy car, the one Adrian had quietly asked a nurse to fix overnight. The boy's smile lit up the room brighter than the morning sun. "Look, Mommy, it works again," Noah said proudly. "The nice man fixed it." Lena smiled weakly, her eyes glistening. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly, turning toward Adrian. He shrugged, slipping his hands into his pockets. "It was just a broken toy." Lena shook her head. "No, it was hope. That car was all he had left from his father. He passed away 2 years ago." Adrian froze for a moment. "I'm sorry." She nodded slowly, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "It's all right. Life hasn't been easy since then, but Noah keeps me going. I was on my way to St. Clair for my prenatal checkup. The baby came early. I didn't even know if we'd make it through the night." Adrian felt a heaviness in his chest. "You did," he said quietly. "Both of you." There was a pause, the kind that says more than words ever could. For once, silence didn't feel uncomfortable to him. It felt grounding. Moments later, a nurse entered with paperwork. "Ms. Lena, you and your baby are stable now, but we'll need someone to sign off on the hospital charges," she said politely. Lena hesitated, eyes darting toward the floor. "Can I pay later? I don't have insurance." "I'll find a way." Adrian didn't let her finish. He stepped forward, pulling out his card. "Put it on me." "Sir, that's not—" Lena started, but he interrupted gently. "It's done," he said, his voice firm but kind. "No arguments." Her eyes filled with tears. "You've already done enough, please." "You don't even know us," Adrian smiled faintly. "Maybe I don't need to." The nurse nodded respectfully and left. The room grew quiet again, the only sound being Noah humming softly to his newborn baby sister, sleeping in a small crib nearby. Adrian looked at them, this fragile little family, and something unfamiliar stirred inside him. For years his life had been boardrooms, numbers, and silent luxury. But this was raw, imperfect humanity. And it shook him. "Do you have anyone to call?" he asked after a while. Lena shook her head. "My parents passed away. His father's family. They never wanted to be part of our lives. I work at a small diner downtown. I'll be back once the doctor clears me. We'll manage somehow." "We always do." Adrian studied her. The quiet strength in her voice, the unbroken courage behind her exhaustion. "You shouldn't have to manage alone," he said finally. Lena smiled faintly. "We don't have a choice, Mr. Cole." He exhaled slowly. "Then let me give you one." Her brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, as if still convincing himself. "I run a foundation. It helps single mothers get education and work opportunities. You'd qualify easily. You could have support, housing, childcare, even a job if you want one." Lena looked stunned. "Why would you do that for me?" Adrian looked toward the window again. "Because someone should have stopped that night. And I don't ever want to be the man who didn't." For a long moment she said nothing. Then her voice, trembling but sincere, broke the silence. "Maybe the storm brought you to us for a reason." Noah grinned, tugging at Adrian's sleeve. "Does that mean you'll come visit, mister?" Adrian chuckled softly, kneeling beside him. "If your mom doesn't mind, I might," Lena smiled. "We'd like that." Later that day, as he left the hospital, the city felt different. The air smelled cleaner, the noise softer. For once, Adrian wasn't thinking about meetings or deadlines. He was thinking about a small boy's courage, a mother's strength, and how a single choice could change more than one life. He stopped by his car, resting his hand on the door handle when his phone buzzed again. A familiar voice on the line. "Adrian, where the hell have you been? The merger meeting's falling apart." Adrian paused, looking up at the sky where sunlight broke through retreating clouds. Let it, he said simply. What? Just let it, Adrian repeated before hanging up. Ethan, his driver, looked back at him from the front seat, surprised. You sure, sir? That deal was everything. Adrian smiled faintly, his gaze distant. Not everything, Ethan, not anymore. As the car pulled away, he looked out the window one last time at St. Clair Hospital, disappearing in the mirror, unaware that this small detour, this single act of kindness, would soon lead to the most unexpected chapter of his life. Because sometimes fate doesn't send storms to destroy you. Sometimes it sends them to wash away who you were, so you can meet who you're meant to be. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of that stormy night clung to Adrian like an unfinished melody. He had returned to his office, to his towering glass walls and polished conference tables. But something was off. The city skyline, once a symbol of pride, now felt hollow. The numbers on his reports no longer impressed him. He found himself replaying that night in his mind. The trembling voice of Lena, the innocence in Noah's eyes, and the quiet stillness of the newborn sleeping under flickering hospital lights. One afternoon, as Adrian sat in his office reviewing yet another million-dollar deal, his assistant knocked softly. "Sir, there's someone here to see you." Miss Lena Hayes?" His pen froze mid-air. "Send her in." Lena entered hesitantly, holding a small gift bag. She looked healthier now, stronger, yet humble as ever. Noah followed beside her, his small hand clutching hers. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she began softly. "I just wanted to thank you again. You paid for everything, even the things we didn't ask for. I couldn't sleep until I said this in person." Adrian rose, a rare smile crossing his face. "You didn't have to come all the way here." She shook her head. "I wanted to. Also, I took the offer you mentioned. The foundation accepted my application. I've started the job training program." "That's good," Adrian said warmly. "You deserve it." Noah looked around the office, eyes wide. "Wow, Mommy, it's like a castle in the clouds." Adrian chuckled. "You think so?" The boy nodded eagerly. "But castles are lonely if there's no one to play with." For a brief moment, the comment cut deeper than he expected. He smiled faintly but said nothing. Lena noticed. "I'm sure he didn't mean—" "No," Adrian interrupted gently. "He's right." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was honest, a rare kind of truth that words couldn't hide. They talked for a while, about her training, about Noah's new school, about small things that somehow mattered more than the empire Adrian had built. When they finally left, Adrian found himself standing by the window long after their car disappeared into traffic. He couldn't explain it, but their presence had filled something in him he hadn't realized was empty. Weeks later, Adrian visited the Foundation's small office unannounced. He wanted to see the program in action, or perhaps, deep down, to see her. Inside, he found Lena surrounded by a group of women, teaching them how to use the computer system. Her laughter was genuine, her confidence effortless. Noah sat nearby, drawing a picture of 3 stick figures under a rainbow, a woman, a child, and a tall man holding their hands. When he saw Adrian, Noah ran up instantly. "Mr. Adrian, look, it's us." Adrian crouched down to his level. "That's a pretty good drawing, buddy." Noah smiled proudly. "You're holding Mommy's hand so she doesn't get lost." Adrian blinked slowly, his throat tightening. "That's thoughtful of me, huh?" "Because heroes don't let people get lost," the boy added matter-of-factly. Lena turned, smiling shyly as she walked over. "I didn't know you were visiting today." "Neither did I," he replied. "I was in the area." She folded her arms. "You mean you were curious if we're surviving without your help?" He laughed softly. "Caught me." They shared a small, genuine moment, a glance that lingered longer than it should have. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Adrian found himself sitting alone in his penthouse dining room, the same one where he'd once hosted lavish parties, now empty and silent. The sound of Noah's laughter still echoed faintly in his mind. He opened his laptop and typed a message to his board. "Effective immediately. I will be stepping back as CEO, focused to shift on the Cole Foundation. Let's build something that actually matters." He hit send before he could change his mind. For years, his life had been about control, but for the first time, letting go felt right. The next morning, Lena received a call from an unknown number. Lena Hayes. Yes, speaking. This is Adrian. I was wondering if you and Noah would like to join me for dinner tonight. Nothing formal, just company. There was a pause on the line, the kind filled with warmth and disbelief. I'd like that, she finally replied. That evening, they met at a small coastal restaurant, far from the city noise, where the waves whispered stories of second chances. Noah talked endlessly about his school project. Lena laughed like she hadn't in years. And Adrian, for the first time in his adult life, felt something close to peace as they walked out under the starlit sky. Noah ran ahead, chasing fireflies. Lena looked up at Adrian, smiling. He hasn't laughed like this since his father died. Adrian looked down at her, his voice low. Then I guess I should thank the storm that brought me to you both. Lena's eyes softened. Storms aren't always meant to break us. Sometimes they wash away what we were, so we can become who we're meant to be. For the first time in his life, Adrian believed her, and as the waves shimmered under the moonlight, something unspoken passed between them. Something neither of them dared to name yet, but both could feel, a beginning born from a storm, a promise, wrapped in silence, and a man who finally understood that wealth means nothing if it can't heal another heart. Months passed quietly, like pages turning in a book neither of them wanted to end. Adrian had stepped away from the chaos of boardrooms and broken promises. His days were now spent at the Cole Foundation, not as a CEO, but as a man rediscovering what purpose truly meant. Lena had become one of the program's most inspiring mentors. She taught young mothers how to rebuild their lives, how to stand when life had already pushed them down. And through it all, Adrian watched her from afar, realizing how her strength was the kind that didn't roar. It healed. Noah adored him too. Every weekend, he'd rush into Adrian's office, leaving drawings all over his desk. Sometimes it was a family with a house and a big garden. Sometimes it was just 3 stick figures holding hands under the words, "Thank you for finding us." Adrian had kept every single one of them, but life, as always, had its own plans. One cold evening, as snow began to fall across the city, Adrian received a call that shattered his calm. It was Lena, her voice trembling. "Noah's in the hospital. Please, come." The words barely made sense before he was already running. When he arrived, Lena was sitting outside the emergency ward, tears streaking her face. He collapsed at school. They said it's a heart condition. They're still running tests. Adrian knelt beside her, his hand trembling as he reached for hers. He's strong. He'll be okay. But her silence said she didn't believe it. Not yet. Hours passed like years. The doctor finally emerged, his expression grave but calm. "He'll need surgery soon. It's complicated but not impossible. The earlier we operate, the better his chances." Lena buried her face in her hands, whispering a prayer. "God, please." Adrian stood still for a moment, and then his voice broke the silence. "Do it, whatever it takes." "Mr. Cole," the doctor said gently, "the surgery and aftercare—" "Don't talk about the cost," Adrian cut in firmly. "Just save him." The doctor nodded and disappeared into the operating room. Lena turned toward him, her eyes red. "Why are you doing all this? You've already given us so much." Adrian met her gaze. "Because that boy reminded me what it means to believe in someone. And because you two are the only real thing I've ever had." She stared at him, speechless, her tears falling silently. The surgery lasted 5 endless hours. Adrian paced the hallway, replaying every memory, Noah's laughter, his questions, his little hands tugging on his sleeve. When the doctor finally emerged, Adrian's heart stopped for a second. "He made it," the doctor said with a small smile. "He's going to be okay." Lena broke down in tears, collapsing into Adrian's arms. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The world around them blurred. There was only relief, gratitude, and the quiet realization that they had crossed something together that would never let them be the same again. Days later, when Noah finally opened his eyes, Adrian was there. "Hey, buddy," he whispered, smiling softly. "You scared us, you know." Noah's lips curved into a weak grin. "Did you stay here all night?" Adrian chuckled. "Maybe a few nights." "Mommy says you don't have to." Adrian leaned closer. "Well, heroes don't leave before the story ends." Noah giggled faintly, drifting back to sleep. Lena stood by the doorway, watching the two of them, a sight that felt like healing itself. She walked over and sat beside Adrian, her voice quiet but full of emotion. "You didn't have to stay," she whispered. He turned to her, his voice low. "Yes, I did. Because you and Noah aren't just people I helped, Lena. You're my family, even if we never said it out loud." Her breath caught in her throat. "Family?" He nodded, eyes glistening. "The kind that doesn't need blood to exist. The kind you fight for even when life tries to take it away." She looked at him for a long time, tears brimming, not from sadness, but from a quiet, overwhelming peace. Weeks later, Noah returned home healthy and laughing again. That spring, the foundation hosted its first Second Chance Gala, an event dedicated to single mothers who turned their struggles into hope. Lena stood on stage to give her speech, her voice clear and strong. "Sometimes life breaks us so we can rebuild stronger. Sometimes it takes a storm to bring the right people together. I lost everything once, and I thought that was the end. But that night, the night when a stranger stopped his car, was really just the beginning." She looked toward Adrian, sitting quietly among the guests, his eyes never leaving hers. After the applause faded and the hall emptied, she found him waiting by the balcony, hands in his pockets, the city lights shimmering below. "That was beautiful," he said softly. "I meant every word," she replied. The air was cool, carrying the scent of spring rain. For a moment neither spoke, and then Lena stepped closer. "You know," she said quietly, "Noah still thinks you're a superhero." Adrian smiled faintly. "And what do you think?" She looked up at him, the man who once lived for profit, now standing in front of her with a heart that had learned to feel again. "I think you're just a man who finally found where he belongs." He exhaled slowly, emotion heavy in his chest. "With you?" She nodded. "With us." Adrian reached out, gently brushing a tear from her cheek. "You and that boy saved me long before I ever tried to save you." The night breeze carried their silence. Two souls who had found home not in wealth, but in each other. And as the city glowed beneath them, Adrian Cole, the man who once thought success meant power, finally understood that true wealth isn't measured in numbers or titles. It's in moments like this, in the heartbeat of a child, the strength of a woman, and the quiet peace of knowing he was no longer alone. The storm had ended, but its rain had grown something beautiful, a family, a second chance, and a love that no storm could ever wash away.